What's up, guys? We're back, and today going to be going over the 2023 NCAA Bracketology the day before the brackets are released. As usual, just get straight into it. Yesterday, Friday, we had a bunch of these semifinals games. Now they got top football seed of Kansas, first team out Oklahoma State, last team in ASU after they had a really close loss to, actually, it wasn't close, but after they made a little bit of a run and then lost to Arizona in the Pac-12 tournament. So we got the last four byes of Penn State, Providence, Utah State, and Rutgers. I agree with most of these. Penn State's been great in the Big 12 tournament. Providence, of course, fell short, lost to UConn in their first game in the Big East tournament. So, they're questionable coming into March Madness. Utah State been on a good run in the Mountain West. I think they beat um, Boise State to move to the championship. Rutgers beat Michigan and then lost to Purdue, so they had a little bit of a upset beating Michigan, but it wasn't that crazy. Last four in, you got Mississippi State, NC State, Pitt, and Arizona State. Mississippi State got blown out by Alabama, so that was pretty tough look for them. It might be probably lower in my last four in, maybe even in my first four out personally. NC State, they obviously had an underwhelming performance against Clemson. They still have good spots on their resume, so they're looking a little bit more secure than Clemson. Same with Pitt. They had that tough loss to Duke, but they're still seeming like a last four in team playing in the first four. Then we got ASU, who of course lost to Arizona, but they beat USC, so they definitely helped their resume to where they moved to the last four in. First four out: Oklahoma State, Nevada, Clemson, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's slowly moving up this. They beat Kentucky, a huge win for them. And then today they play Texas A&M, so got to see them beat them. I mean, they basically need to win the SEC tournament to make March Madness, so it's not looking great for them because they still have to play Alabama and Texas A&M. Most likely Alabama. It's either Alabama or Missouri, I think. Either one would be a tough matchup. And Oklahoma State, of course, they lost to Texas in the Big 12 tournament. Texas, very good team, so nothing really against Oklahoma State, just a really good Big 12 this season, and they were one of the mediocre teams. Nevada fell apart at the very end. They lost three of their, I think, their last three games. They did not put on a good performance against San Jose State either in the Mountain West tournament, so they're looking like they're out of the bracket. Clemson, they got blown out by Virginia. Uh, Bad showing for them. They blew out NC State, but then not being able to do anything against Virginia does not help them at all. And then these four teams are for sure out because all of them had pretty early losses, other than like Oregon, but Oregon lost to UCLA and they needed that win, so they're not going to make it. Now I guess the actual bracket: Auburn moves up, Louisiana, Southern Utah is looking like the bid from the Western Athletic Conference. Texas A&M moves up that line. Utah State's getting more secure and looks like they're actually going to be a team in. Both Mississippi State and NC State fall. Missouri's in. Penn State slowly rising. UCLA is not looking great. Miami drops after that loss against Duke. Rutgers moves up. Kentucky moves down after the loss to Vanderbilt, and USC moves down after the loss to Arizona State. So we got our actual bracket picks now. Start with the first four: Pitt versus Arizona State. I'm rooting for Arizona State here. Just one of my personal teams that I like. And Pitt, I feel, has been too inconsistent this season, and they don't really have any of those like star guys. I mean, of course they don't have any stars, but like Jamarius Burton and Blake Hinson, I feel like they're not going to be able to consistently show. They haven't been able to consistently put on performances, so I've got Arizona State win this one. Pretty sure that goes where it goes over. That would go here. It made it like that, so we got Arizona State there. Then we got Southeast Missouri State versus Fairleigh Dickinson. Either team really SEMO, obviously the worst team. Fairleigh Dickinson looks a little better, but they did lose their tournament while SEMO is hot, so I feel like I got to go with SEMO here. and they would go right here. And then we got Mississippi State versus NC State. Mississippi State again got blown out. They got Tolu Smith, but NC State has a good matchup. Problem with that, DJ Burns will be able to probably hold Tolu Smith and prevent him from going crazy. So I feel like Mississippi State doesn't really have a leverage on NC State, while NC State's guard play will probably get this game done for them. They fill in that spot. Then we got Howard versus Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Howard, solid. So is Texas A&M Corpus Christi. I feel like they've just been probably the better team recently, and I feel like they will actually make the tournament. I feel like Howard's probably going to lose to Norfolk State. Either way, I got Texas A&M CC beating either of those teams. So then, yep, they move up there. All right. Now we got the actual bracket. Kansas versus Grambling State. All these 116s, I don't see anyone having a UMBC type upset. Got Kansas moving on there. We got Iowa versus Auburn. Iowa, that really tough loss to Ohio State, while Auburn lost to Arkansas. Both teams definitely had their ups and downs this year. Iowa, of course, had the great comeback against Michigan State. Auburn just had this solid resume for being in the SEC. Not great, though. Feel like Iowa will be able to pull this one off. Duke versus Charleston. This is this tough spot for both of these teams. Duke does not want to be a 5 seed. 12 seeds are too much of a threat. Or there are too many good 12 seeds to really be safe as a 5 seed this year. But for Charleston, this is the 1-5 seed that I feel is like securely in the next round, because Duke has been on a very good hot streak recently. And of course, just coming off of a win against Miami, that's got to be huge for them. Got Duke moving on. Then we got Xavier versus Louisiana. Xavier, definitely a solid team. Louisiana, of course, a good team in the Sun Belt, had a little good run in there. Xavier is coming off a very good win against Creighton in the Big East tournament, where they beat him by over 20. Soleil Boom, Colby Jones, and Jack Nunge, I feel, will be able to get it done against Louisiana. We got San Diego State versus Arizona State. San Diego State is a team that I'm not super confident in, but they have a very good defense, and they have a very good group of players to where they are deep, and it's not just one guy, it's more of a mix of guys. The only thing to worry about with that is that it's not just like they don't have these 1 or 2 go-to scoring guys that they can rely on, so their offense might be iffy at times. But against Arizona State, I feel like they will not have a problem in beating them. Tennessee against Southern Utah. If Southern Utah had not beaten Utah Valley, or Sam Houston had not beaten or had not lost to Grand Canyon, I feel like either of those teams, Sam Houston or Utah Valley, would be able to beat Tennessee. But Southern Utah, I haven't really seen enough consistency from them. And yes, they had a very good comeback, but I don't even know if they're going to be able to beat Grand Canyon in this Western Athletic Conference final tonight. So I got Tennessee moving on. I'm definitely not looking very confident in Tennessee, though. We got Northwestern versus Boise State. Boise State, tough loss against Utah State, but they are still a very good team. Northwestern, tough loss against Penn State. They're still a solid team, but I do believe in them less than Boise State. And I feel like this section right here is not very upset heavy. Although, if you want to pick an upset here, Arizona over Colgate over Arizona, it would be a tough upset. Of course, Arizona is still a solid team, and I am rooting for them. But I gotta admit, they have a bunch of tough losses on their schedule, on their resume. They've beaten good teams, UCLA, they've beaten Tennessee, but against the bad teams like Stanford, Washington State, Utah, they've not come up well, and they've lost games like that. So Colgate is a team that could beat Arizona, but I still feel like Arizona as a 2 seed will be able to get past Colgate. Then we got Purdue versus Southeast Missouri State. Purdue, Zach Edey's going to be too much to handle for that team. We got Florida Atlantic versus Memphis. This is a close game. Florida Atlantic obviously has that weird play style of a mid-major in the Conference USA, while Memphis has Kendrick Davis and DeAndre Williams. Memphis has been looking better and better, but I still feel like Florida Atlantic is a very good team, and I feel like they'll be able to beat Memphis. We got Texas A&M versus Oral Roberts. This is another tough matchup for the 5-12 because 12 seeds, they're very, very good this year, and I would not want to be a 5 seed. Um, Oral Roberts though is also coming up pretty tough against Texas A&M, which is a team that is on the rise recently. I do feel though that Oral Roberts will probably be able to get a upset here. Texas A&M, they have the great guard play of Wade Taylor the fourth and Tyrese Radford, but Oral Roberts, they're going to be on a run this year. I think it's Max Asmus last year, so he's going to be trying to do all he can to win. We got Kansas State versus Toledo. This is honestly another upset potential right here. Toledo, very good offensive team. Kansas State, looking a little bit iffy after that TCU loss early in the Big 12 conference tournament. Still a very good team, but they rely a little too much on Marquise Noel. Keontae Johnson's always going to be a little bit of a solid player, but if he's having an inconsistent night, I don't fully believe in them. And I got Toledo in this one. We got St. Mary's versus Utah State. I do not know why it's like that. All right, whoops. St. Mary's versus Utah State. St. Mary's, solid team, lost to Gonzaga in the Western Conference, in the Western Conference's tournament. Utah State on the rise in the Mountain West. Trying not to go too upset crazy here, but I feel like Utah State is the hotter team, so I got them moving on. UConn versus Vermont. This is honestly another one where Vermont's a very good team. You could have them winning, but UConn, I feel, is a potentially Elite 8 team. They got a lot of guys on that team that can put the ball in the basket. Did come up tough against Marquette, barely lost. Marquette's just another different beast. So, still got UConn beating Vermont though. Michigan State versus Providence. Michigan State did come up very tough against Ohio State. Rough loss for them. Providence also did not play well in the Big East Conference tournament. Got Michigan State here because I feel like that was just a rare loss against Ohio State. Baylor versus Montana State. Baylor. I don't see another 15 seed beating a 2 seed this year, especially not Montana State against Baylor. That brings us over to this side, and we got Alabama versus Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Alabama, 1 seed, dominant 1 seed too. So they shouldn't have a problem with that. They got Maryland versus West Virginia. Maryland, Jabir Young, Don Scott, they got some good guys over there, but West Virginia has been they've had better competition, and they played better against that competition. So I feel like they are a lock to move on if they get this matchup. Then we got Iowa State versus VCU. Iowa State is a solid team, and they get probably the easiest 12 matchup against VCU because VCU is not that great of a team. Do have some solid guys over there, but I feel like whoever comes out of the A10 is going to be the weakest 12 seed or one of the weakest 12 seeds. And Iowa State, as inconsistent as they are, I still feel like they'll probably be able to get it done against at least VCU. We got Virginia versus Iona. Virginia did come up with a big win against Clemson. Iona, obviously, on a run, Rick Pitino squad. Don't see them getting an upset here. Got Virginia moving on. Then we got Miami versus Rutgers. Miami is a team that I really, really like, and them moving down from the 5 seed is honestly a lot better for them. Because I feel like the 3 seeds are easier to beat than some 4 seeds, as well as these 11 seeds being easier to beat than some of these really good mid-major 12 seeds. Because some earlier bracketologies had or Roberts or Charleston going against Miami, and that'd be a very, very tough matchup for them first round. While against Rutgers, I definitely see Miami being able to move on, although they did just have a tough loss against Duke. Then we got Marquette versus Furman. Marquette, again, very, very solid team. They just beat UConn, so they're obviously really good. They got Tyler Kolek, one of the best point guards in the nation, along with just their overall solid lineup. Got them getting past Furman. Then we got Kentucky versus USC. Kentucky, very, very good 7 seed for sure. USC is definitely looking a little rough recently, especially with that ASU loss. Got Kentucky moving on. They are definitely on the upward trend. Texas versus Kennesaw State. Texas, because I just feel like they are too dominant of a team. Houston against Northern Kentucky. Houston, they are the top overall seed. I feel like against Northern Kentucky especially, they should not have any problems. Arkansas versus Illinois. This is a very close matchup here. Illinois, I feel like they are very hard to predict. They got good guys over there, but I feel like they underperform a lot of the time. And against Arkansas, who can make a little bit of a run, I got Arkansas moving on. We got TCU versus Drake. TCU, another 5 seed that could get upset by a 12 seed. Drake, probably one of the weaker 12 seeds, although. TCU, they did have a really good win against Kansas State. Lost to Texas. Drake obviously won the Missouri Valley, beat Bradley. I don't know who to pick here. I'm feeling like it's going to be Drake, though. Yeah, I got Drake winning. Then we got Indiana versus Yale. Indiana, very, very solid team. Got Trace Jackson Davis, obviously, and Jalen Hood-Schifino against Yale, who is, just in the Ivy League. They seem to always win. I got Indiana moving on pretty easily. We got Creighton versus NC State. Creighton is a team that I have a lot of faith in. I really like them, although they have very glaring issues in their depth and their inconsistency among their guards primarily. Because the whole reason why they got blown out by Xavier was mainly because Ryan Nembhard was not shooting well, and they could not rely fully on Baylor Shireman's three-point ability. Usually Arthur Kaluma's one of these safer guys that's going to be consistent on that team, along with Ryan Kalkbrenner. Against NC State, I feel like they shouldn't have too much of a problem, but they're one of those teams that they could either go on a really good run or they could get upset in the first round, and I wouldn't be surprised either way. For that being said, though, I got Creighton moving on. Then we got Gonzaga versus UCSB. Gonzaga, again, very, very good team, on a little bit of an upward trend after beating St. Mary's. Against UCSB, I feel like they should have no problem. Missouri versus Penn State. Both teams are playing pretty well right now. Missouri obviously just beat Tennessee, while Penn State's been on a run in the Big Ten tournament. With that being said, Penn State and Jalen Pickett, I feel like will be able to get it done against Missouri. Then we got UCLA versus UNC Asheville. UNC Asheville is probably one of the stronger 15 seeds, but against UCLA, although they did lose Jalen Clark, I feel like they're not going to be losing in the first round. So then we got Kansas versus Iowa. Kansas, they've just been a very dominant team this year in the best conference. Got Jalen Wilson, one of the National Player of the Year candidates, along with very good freshmen and transfer players. Got Kansas winning this one. They're the reigning champs for a reason. Then we got Duke versus Xavier. Duke, again, on an upward trend, especially after beating Miami, while Xavier is also on an upward trend after beating Creighton. Got Duke winning this one, though. Feel like they are the more solid and consistent team recently, while Xavier I'm not fully in love with their team. We got San Diego State versus Tennessee. Tennessee's getting pretty easy luck in this side of the bracket, honestly, because normally I would not have them going, honestly, out of the first round, especially not the second round. Against San Diego State, it will be an easier matchup for them. With that being said, I still do really like San Diego State, and I got them moving past them. They got Boise State versus Arizona. Arizona, again, Azuolas Tubelis, National Player of the Year candidate, alongside Umar Ballo. Those big men, I feel like, are going to be too much for Boise State to handle. Got Arizona moving on. Then we got Purdue versus Florida Atlantic. Feel like Zach Edey's too much for Florida Atlantic to handle. Got them moving on. Oral Roberts versus Toledo. Max Asmus, again, very, very good. Toledo, amazing offense. Got Oral Roberts moving on, though. We got Utah State versus UConn. As much of a run Utah State's been on, I feel like UConn is a very, very solid team. And I feel like they'll be able to get past this Marquette loss and make it at least to the Sweet 16. Then we got Michigan State versus Baylor. Baylor, again, very, very solid team. They got Keontae George. They got Adam Flagler. Their weak spots are probably the big men, the center position. But that is also one of these same things with Michigan State, because I think theirs is, I forgot his name, but he's not amazing. They really got just great guard play. So the matchup of two really great guard play teams got Baylor moving on, though. Then we got Alabama versus West Virginia. Alabama and Brandon Miller, I feel like we'll be able to get past West Virginia, because they do not. They are inconsistent at times, so I don't fully believe in them. Then we got Iowa State versus Virginia. Iowa State, again, I feel like they can definitely be upset, and they're not that great of a team this year. But against Virginia, I feel the exact same way about Virginia. They are not one of my favorite teams here. Could definitely see them get upset. With that reason, I got Iowa State moving on, because they at least have been looking better in their tournament. Well, actually, both teams have been looking good. But Iowa State against Baylor, definitely a surprise pick for them, or a surprise upset for them. We got Miami versus Marquette. As good as Marquette's been playing in the Big East, I do really like this Miami team. And although they played in a weak ACC, their guard play of Isaiah Wong and Nigel Pack, they got Jordan Miller. And it all relies on if Norchad Omier is healthy. But if he is, I definitely see them being able to beat Marquette. This is a very, very tough matchup here, Kentucky versus Texas. I really love this Texas team, but against Kentucky, that is a very tough draw for them, because Kentucky is one of the teams that out of these mid picks, these like 6 to 11 seeds, I feel like Kentucky's the strongest team and the most likely to go on a run. Against Texas too, who is inconsistent at times, I feel like Kentucky will be able to move on. Then we got Houston versus Arkansas. Again, another tough matchup. Arkansas can be playing very, very good at times, but against Houston, I don't see them pulling off an upset or anything there. Then we got Indiana versus Drake. Indiana, very, very good team. Again, they got Trace Jackson Davis, Jalen Hood-Schifino. Against Drake, I feel like it should be no problem for them to move on. Then we got Creighton versus Gonzaga. Again, Creighton can be one of those really, really inconsistent teams, while Gonzaga is on an upward trend of consistency. And I was going to pick Creighton here, but the more that I think about it, I feel like Gonzaga is the more reasonable pick. Penn State versus UCLA. This is a little bit of an upset, or this is an upset. UCLA, they're a very, very strong team, but Penn State has been very, very hot, and the hot teams coming into March usually do the best. And UCLA not being fully healthy, I feel like it's going to bite them in the back. If they lose to Arizona today, I feel like this will definitely be a easier pick to make. But right now, this is a hard pick, but I'm going to go with Penn State to move on. Jalen Pickett, I feel like, is going to be able to put Penn State on his back and carry them to a little bit of a run in this March Madness tournament. Then we got Kansas versus Duke. Very good matchup right here. Kansas, again, Jalen Wilson and all those guys. Great team. Duke on an upward trend, but against Kansas, I feel like Kansas will be able to prevail. Then we got San Diego State versus Arizona. This is honestly probably the weakest section of this entire bracket, because these two are not strong 7 or 10 seeds. I do like Boise State, but they're not. They're one of the weakest groupings, along with the 6 and 11. San Diego State's probably the worst 6 seed. Tennessee's probably the worst 3 seed, and Arizona's probably the worst 2 seed. So, just to have a little bit of a upset, I feel like I got to go with San Diego State here, just because Arizona has been inconsistent at times, and against San Diego State, I don't know if they're going to be able to handle whatever they're going to throw at them. Then with this matchup, Kansas versus San Diego State, I got Kansas moving on. As stereotypical as it is to have, one of the 1 seeds moving on, I feel like Kansas is just, they have too easy of a run in this conference, so they're going to move on. We got Purdue versus Oral Roberts. Purdue is a very good team, and Oral Roberts I don't feel like is going to make a very deep run, so I got to have Purdue over them. Then UConn versus Baylor. I got UConn. I feel like they are just a better overall team, and especially with Baylor coming off that tough loss against Iowa State, feel like UConn will be able to get it done. And then against Purdue, I feel like UConn will be able to win this one as well. Adama Sanogo, along with Jordan Hawkins and all those other guys, they can definitely put on a run against Purdue, especially because Purdue is becoming one of the more inconsistent teams. Or it's probably like the weakest 1 seed, so I got UConn moving on. Then that brings us over here to Alabama versus Iowa State. Alabama, again, with the whole Brandon Miller stuff, they're still looking like a very, very good team. And against Iowa State as well. Iowa State, don't fully believe in them. They're a little too inconsistent for me. Got Alabama moving on. Then Miami versus Kentucky. Both teams very, very good. Depends on Norchad Omir's health if Miami is going to make it this far. If not, got Marquette definitely beating them there. But Kentucky, again, one of the most hot teams, or not one of the hottest. They just lost to Vanderbilt, but one of the strongest lower seeds in this tournament. I gotta have them moving on, and honestly, just have one of those little upset teams. I got Kentucky moving past Alabama, especially because they lost last year, very early against St. Peter's. They're going to be on a little bit of a revenge tour, and I got them moving on to the Final Four. Then we got Houston versus Indiana. Houston, very good team. Indiana, very good team. I feel like Houston's guard play outweighs what Indiana can throw at him, though, and I got Houston moving on. Then we got Gonzaga versus Penn State. Gonzaga, very good team, again. But Penn State and Jalen Pickett, I feel like can definitely go on a little bit of a run. And I got them making the Elite Eight. And then I see their run stopping when they match up against Houston, because Houston is a great team. And I got them moving past Penn State. Trying to see if I picked all the 1 seeds. Yeah, I did. I picked all the 1 seeds to move to the Elite Eight. That's not going to happen. But just the way these tournaments set up, I feel like this is the most reasonable thing that can happen. The only 2 I could see losing is maybe Kansas against Duke or Houston against Indiana. But Purdue's run is too easy, and Alabama's run is too easy for them to mess up earlier than that. Same with Purdue. Like, I don't see them losing to most of those teams. So yeah. Now Kansas versus UConn. UConn, again, do really like this team. Do I like them enough to put them in the finals? I don't know. I'm gonna say yes though. Then Houston versus Kentucky. Houston is just amazing, man. I don't know. Kentucky, they could have this little bit of a run, but I feel like I gotta go with Houston. And then against UConn, I think I might have to pick Houston to win the entire thing. This is definitely gonna change by tomorrow when the bracket's released. That's when I'm gonna drop my actual March Madness predictions. This is just what I'm feeling right before Selection Sunday. And we'll see as more of these conference tournaments finish up and see who it wins and who loses, who I feel I have more faith in, or who I am a little less confident in. But right now, this is what I see happening based on that bracketology. And that is all for today. If you want to see any of my other videos about all the conference tournament predictions, check. They're all posted. Other than that, like, subscribe if you feel like it, and I will see you guys later.